ko alam, minsan hindi nila alam ang gagawin.
Ako ay sa'yo.
May H, him. May V, virgin. May S, saints. Hindi sa sampo.
Ang V, virgin.
Ang A. Beautiful name.
Ako ay sa'yo, pagkat ikaw lang ang sa'kin nagpala. Nabis kang ako'y ang kinin mo, pinari mo maral sa'yo, nibig sabihin mo
Madre of Mother Teresa. I'd like to share something of her. She is one of us, Avila, attorney by our lawyer. If Father Shampoo said that Eddie's second home is Ateneo, her second home
songs. She has many poems that were made into songs, but for me this is because it really spells, it really describes Teresa's spirituality, that she was born for Christ. And so, and I'm sure that you also all know that kasi ang charism ng Carmel, it doesn't mean that the other groups are not engaged in prayer. We all are, di ba? We all are. But each group has its own charism. Some active life, some contemplation, prayer. So, ang Carmel kasi is known for prayer. Yung contemplative prayer. And it's a very different type of prayer from, for example, yung spiritual exercises ng mga Jesuit, na may method talaga. Si Teresa, yung Carmelite prayer niya, freedom of the spirit eh. You pray the way you feel you are capable of. No, that's why you see us sa chapel 2 hours mo ginagawa ng mga yun. No? Minsan natutulog na yata, minsan yung distractions. Pero ganon, yung parang kasi sa Teresian spirituality, you allow God to penetrate. To penetrate you, whoever you are, whatever your mood. No? So, hindi excuse na you're not in the mood to pray, just go. So, dun sa set na time. And so, the key to reading the words of Teresa is to understand na yun ang kanyang center theme, prayer. And she says in the book of her life, she says that, I say only that prayer is the door to favors as great as those He granted me. Because God really gave her so much. No, yung, sabi niya, she has been unfaithful. Kasi if you have read a life of Teresa of Avila, you know, when I was young, I never liked to read lives of saints. Kasi they seem to be so unrealistic. No, para bang, they're up there, and I cannot identify, no, with the lives of saints, no, written by But if you read Teresa's life, yung especially if you can find it, no, medyo luma na rin yung kay Marcel Ocler, no, makita mo talagang napaka-normal person. Si Saint Teresa kasi, she from childhood diba? From childhood, talagang given to God na siya. Sabi ni Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus, at the age of 3, since the age of 3, I have never refused God anything. But Teresa, she kept on refusing. She was a woman of her time, a woman of the world. She had suitors. She enjoyed dancing, playing chess. She was very sportive. And so God had to take her. Kasi si Saint Teresa, little way No, little way. Kasi nga, ano na siya no? Yung, si Teresa, God had to really force her No, yung to take her by force. Kasi may resistance. No, may resistance. Really force her No, yung to take her by force. Kasi may resistance. No, may resistance. And so, God's way of really making her realize you are for me is to give her grace, yung mga extraordinary graces. Kasi pwede naman tayo maging santo without any... And many people go through life and become saints without visions, without locutions, ecstasies. Pero si Teresa, she had all that. No? She had all that. So sabi niya, prayer is the door. No, for her, because she resisted. No, sabi niya. So sabi niya, since prayer is the door, maybe we can also translate this in our own life. No? Maybe God will not give us really graces that are extraordinary. But somehow, He wants to give us something. Diba? And mas subtle. What probably yung way ng Diyos sa atin is more subtle than what He did for Teresa. No, ecstasies. So the more we have to be attentive, no? Kasi we might miss the grace, no, when it's coming. He said that prayer is the gate, is the door. And so if you close that door, then God will not be able to grant us anything if you close that door. Because sabi ni Teresa, many truths are revealed in prayer. And so, the time, this session is really a sharing guide to help us read Teresa. To be honest, before I entered Notre I didn't know anything about Teresa of Avila. I knew a lot about Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus. In fact, siya yung attraction for me because I was in UP, tapos yung dating superior dito si Miss Marie Isgu, she went to UP and gave a conference on the Little Teresa, and I was attracted by that. No? But Teresa, I didn't know her. I didn't even know if that school, St. Teresa's College, is the Little Teresa or the Big Teresa. No? Yung pala Big Teresa yun. And when I was already in the novitiate, I did not appreciate Teresa also. I found her didactic. Kasi parang nagtuturo. No? Hindi katulad din dito Teresa na tapos si Janet the Cross, very poetic. And since I like poetry, I like reading Janet the Cross. So it took a while, no? When our superior here asked me to give Teresa to our members' information, I said, nako. So I was forced to read her. And then I began to appreciate her. I saw how yung style niya, no, na So she has several books, but the four most important is the Book of Her Life, The Way of Perfection, The Interior Castle, and then yung Foundations. Now yung life, like the life of Saint Teresa, which I'm sure many of us have already read, it's not an autobiography. It's not a usual autobiography. She wrote it, but it was not really a kind of a chronological, historical accounting of her life. It is not, as Teresa says, it's not my life. It is the story of how God has loved me. That is her, the book of her life is really a story of how much God loved Teresa of Avila, right? And her growth in God's friendship. So, like the Interior Castle, yung book of her life describes the different stages of spiritual growth. Kasi yung Interior Castle, yung first mansion, third mansion, second mansion. Ito, bawat chapter, you see how a person grows in spiritual life. And she experienced everything. She said, you know, when you read the book of her life, you will realize you cannot write about these things unless you have really experienced them yourself. So you can see that she has had an experience, a very deep experience of God's love. That's why she could write about it. And she went through all the stages. She probably never yung totally outside the castle. Probably nag-start siya sa first Yeah. Pero she went through everything until the summit. So that is the book of her life. Now, if you have any questions, I will just interrupt me or any comments. Then the Way of Perfection is a book that comments on the Our Father. In fact, it's the easiest to read. Kasi may outline eh. Yung Our Father who art in heaven, and then she will talk about it. And then, until yung pinakahuli, no? Commentaries niya yun on the way on the Our Father. Later, we will go in more detail, no, dito sa mga books na to. Then, the Interior Castle is the book of the mansions, where the spiritual growth is described in more detail. Tapos yung Foundations naman, this is actually complementary to, it completes the life, the book of her life, because it's the story of the foundation of this house, Avila. And here, this is really Teresa in action. Kasi meron siyang title na Andariega, kasi plan siya on the road, founding different convents. While she may be a contemplative Carmelite nun, she was ordered by Christ to found convents everywhere. And she met a lot of oppositions from the hierarchical church. So sinasabi niya, I have to obey. I have to obey the hierarchical church. So sabi niya kay Jesus, if you want me to found that convent, you better change the mind of the bishop. So, and then something will happen and the bishop will say, okay, you go. No? Tapos pag na-found na niya yung convent, magbabago na naman yung mind ng bishop and will scold her for founding the convent. But he said it's already founded. No? So, medyo ganun yung Book of the Foundations. Now, what is the context of all these writings? You know, in my, I teach legal ethics kasi sa College of Law, both sa UP at sa Lasal. I always ask my students to read fiction. novels, no? Book report, mga libro ni John Grisham, Tom Clancy, so book report. I said, why? Why am I asking you to read fiction? Because writings are often reflective of what really happens in society, even if it is fiction. For example, John Grisham writes a lot about how unethical the practice of law is in the US. If it's not true, he would have no material, diba, for his novels. And if you read the classics, you read Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, you watch the movie, then you have an idea of how France was during that time with social injustice. The same with Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Then you have an idea where England came from. No? Now they are one of the most progressive, democratic, with social justice. But they had a beginning much worse than our beginning in the Philippines. So if you want to see the context of the society of that time, you read some of the novels. Kasi that's where the novelists take their material from what happens in society. So si Teresa, she is what she is partly because of the prevailing atmosphere in 16th century Spain. Ano yung prevailing culture? Aristocratic. Tapos, the church was politically dominant. Alam niyo naman, kahit sa Philippines, no, we're probably experiencing that even now, no? Pag may political dominance ng isang religious group, yung nagiging tendency is to be aggressive. So, at that time, the Catholic Church had political dominance, not only religious but also political. And it was the time of that imperial expansion of Charles I of Spain, followed by Philip II, 1556 to 1598. So, kaya tayo naging Philippines, di ba? We were 1521, no? When Magellan came. And so, the values very prevalent during the time of Teresa in the Spanish society were prestige, brought about by rank and title, and then money, and also pleasure. And so, Teresa was so preoccupied with the harm. Kasi when we look at it, why does Teresa keep on saying na yung punto de honor na yan, you should, sweep it aside? Because yung punto de honor ng Spain noon really had something to do with the punto de honor of the aristocracy. To be looked up by your fellow human beings in society. And she said that these cultural values can really cause harm also. They're not all that good. By themselves, probably they're good, but they can cause harm. Because if you put too much emphasis in your honor, then you're not thinking of the honor of God. The first thing that we should consider is God's honor, not your own. And then, of course, women during Teresa's time were not exactly looked down on, but they had no role. No, they had no role politically. They were always under, well, even in law, no? Yung, kasi tayo, we borrowed our criminal law, yung revised penal code from Spain. From Spain. And sinasabi ko nga sa mga estudyante ko, don't you notice, where is rape classified? It's classified not under crimes against persons. It's classified against crimes against honor. And probably, there is very good reason to believe that the honor is not the honor of the woman, but the honor of the man who owns her, the father, the brother, the eldest brother, the husband. So that is the what we, now it's different na sa atin, no? Kasi minsan yung feminism meron din na-accomplish, no? Na-change na yun. But that was Spain at the time. Women had no say in the political life of 16th century Spain. And so it translated, no, even sa spiritual aspect, no. Kasi ang tingin nila sa babae, di ba sabi ni Plato ba? Is it Plato who said, or is it Aristotle who said that a woman is an incomplete man? And so it means that women are irrational, women are emotional, they don't think, they just feel, they act according to feelings. So ganun yung tingin sa babae, no, nung time ni Teresa. They could not be trusted to make rational decisions. And because they are emotional, then they are more easily influenced by the devil. And so, they should not be trusted to engage in silent prayer. Because if they pray silently, their emotion will get the better of them, and then they will begin to, the mind will become the devil's workshop. So, ganun yung pag-iisip nila at that time. So, bawal sila mag-meditate, otherwise they will be accused of being mga Illuminada. They will be brought to the Inquisition. Mga witches, di ba? They were burning witches at the time. So how did Teresa react, no, to all this? She accepted her role. Sabi niya, madalas sabi niya, I'm only a poor woman, a wretched woman. No? May nagtanong nga sa akin na one of our members information, syempre bata pa yun, tsaka kapapasok pa lang. Bakit po ganun? Bakit niya sinasabing babae lang siya? No? So, yun know, syempre kasi tayo ba na yung kultura natin. So, sabi ko, kasi ganun yung, she has to say that. No? Otherwise, the bishops will think she has become very proud and etc. etc. So, and that was the context. She really believed, no, na what the society believed about women. But she said, where it concerns spiritual life, I don't agree that we should be prevented from soaring. Sabi pa nga niya, tignan niyo yung Ebanghelyo, look at the Gospels, how the women were in front of Jesus. Who went to the tomb? The first, diba, women who stayed with Jesus throughout the crucifixion. Si Mary Magdalene. So, sabi niya, women, it's true that we are only poor women, but we can go very far as where God wants to take us. So, she really insisted on that. And in fact, later we will discuss, that was the theme of her way of perfection. Kasi sinasabi ng hierarchical church, women should be confined to vocal prayer. Just be happy to be reciting the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory Be. So sabi naman ni Teresa, if you recite the Our Father without also engaging in mental prayer and meditation, then you're not praying. You're just, mouthing things. And so you cannot pray vocally without also praying mentally. So naggawa siya ng commentary sa Our Father for her sisters, for the sisters of her convent. Okay. Now, so yun yung, yung societal climate, status of women, what about the religious climate? 16th century Spain was pervaded by popular piety. So, sa buhay ni Teresa, because, well, she discovered contemplation because God Himself, no, Christ Himself taught her. But, merong balance na nag-exist sa kanya between her mystical life and the practice of piety. Because the practice of piety was the culture of her time. And so, di ba gumagamit siya ng mga symbols, holy water, nung nagpapakita sa kanya yung demonyo, inaano niya ng holy water, no? Tapos, the use of holy images when praying, which helped her a lot, no? And she loved the processions, and she liked religious songs. Now, during her time also, as we said earlier, may political dominance ang Catholic Church. So it was called, the modern authors called that the Catholic theocracy, the dominance of the Catholic Church. And when we talk of the Church before, talk of the Church, we only refer to the Catholic Church, no? And kaya that explains yung reaction ni Teresa sa Reformation. Because if we read that now, sabihin natin, she was intolerant. Kasi sinasabi niya, let us pray, sisters, because the world is on fire, the devil is taking it by storm. In connection with the Reformation that was happening in America, no, yung Protestantism, no? So, it wasn't because she was intolerant, but because during that time, the church was the Catholic Church. Anything outside the Catholic Church was not church. And so she was a woman of her time. So, ganun yung naging reaction. Now, well, the family of Teresa herself, hindi na. Bakit siya Teresa de Ahumada? No? Kasi, ang mother niya ang Ahumada the father was Sanchez. But, because Sanchez, if the children take the family name Sanchez, then people would know she has Jewish origins. And during that time, yung mga Christians with Jewish background were suspected of not being good Catholics. And so, the father decided that all the children will take the family name of the mother. Kaya siya de Ahumada. So, yun yung background, yun yung religious atmosphere. And then, of course, the suspicions against mystical graces. And she was having mystical graces. And that is why it was very difficult for her. She had to tell her confessors about it, no? She could not hide it. That was why they asked her to write. Because they also could not understand her mystical graces. Now, what are the key elements in Teresa's teachings? Teresa is centered on Christ. And she is also, her writings are also scripture-based. She quotes a lot from the Bible, even if during that time women were not allowed to read the Bible. Mga excerpts lang. So the excerpts that she was able to read, that she was allowed to read, she took that by heart and always referred to them. And her works emphasize the theological virtues of faith, hope, and love. And she is a doctor of the church because her doctrine is universal. The message is not only for the people of Spain, not only for the small community of Carmel, the whole people of Spain, but the world, and through generations. 16th century Spain, up to now, no, valid pa rin kanyang doctrine. That's why she was declared the doctor of the church, because of that. So that her message of prayer is always relevant. And it can be practiced not only by priests and religious, but by all Christians of all times. People ask us often, kasi secular institute natin, how do you manage? Kasi 2 hours of prayer, we manage. We find the time. Because otherwise, what is our difference with other people who are also engaged in Christian work outside? And it's also the source of what we do. Our work, our profession is our apostolate. And so we need to anchor on prayer. Now, her teachings present the ideal of community life with Christ at the heart of the community, because she wrote for her sisters. She did not think of publishing. She thought she was just writing for her small community. And so, she said that that small community must really practice genuine evangelical love, and they should honor human values of gentleness, prudence, discretion, sincerity, and joy. Because in a community, if there is no gentleness, there's no prudence, there's no discretion, imagine what kind of, especially in Carmel. No, if you are 10 inside Carmel, you are 10 for life. No, pwede kayo madagdagan, some will die, young ones will enter. But when you enter, you know that you will be with these people, throughout your waking life. And so if there is no gentleness, there's no prudence, there's no discretion, it will be like living in hell, di ba? Ito nga even in our community, may mga fireworks dyan. I'm sure you know that, no? I mean, communal life is not easy. I remember when I was a novice, yung information pa ako, yung novice mistress namin. Sabi niya palaga, kasi ang palagi nagkakagulo dyan yung mga novices kasi we're together always sa work, sa and syempre iba-ibang temperament, tapos kulang pa sa formation. Sabi niya, in your own families, where you were brought up by the same parents, you have trouble. You have trouble sometimes with your brothers and sisters. What more in a religious community where you come from different cultures and different style of upbringing, and it would be very unnatural to always be, smiling, and so you have to show who you are, and in the process, si Father Mario Jan, siyang magandang image dyan Sabi niya yung potato, kasi sa Europe, di ba, potato ang staple food nila. When you gather them from the field, they're very dirty. So you put them in water and boil them. And while they're boiling, they rub each other, and they become clean. In the process. That's what happens also in a community. But still, you have to develop love, you have to develop prudence, gentleness, so that the community will be livable. So that's what Teresa is saying here. And then, Teresa is a daughter of the church. At the end of her life, but she started with, I want to see God. So that's contemplation. In the end, she said, I am a daughter of the church. That's action. So, Teresa is a daughter of the church. And therefore, her works have an ecclesial dimension. She has a sense of the church and its needs. And while she is a daughter of the church, she is also a daughter of Carmel. And so, Mary has a special place in Teresa's writings. She penetrates all elements of Carmelite life and seals them with a Marian character.
So just to recap, no, Christocentric and scripture-based, yung theological virtues, universality of her teachings, and then the ideal of community life. Christ must be at the heart of the community. And then yung ecclesial dimension and the Marian character. Okay, so now we will go to each of her writings. I only took the book of her life, The Way of Perfection, and The Inferior Castle. So the book of her life, as I said earlier, it's not an autobiography in the usual sense. She did not keep a journal. No? She did not write down every day what did I experience, etc. She was already experiencing all that. No? When her superior, her confessor, asked her to write. So the biographical sketches that we will find in the book of Teresa's life is there only to give a kind of background to better understand what God has done for Teresa. And the book of her life was written in obedience. She would not have written it without being ordered to do so. And it was written in the spirit of openness also to her superior. She had to write everything. Hindi niya inisip, ay, ito baka hindi ito pwede sa Inquisition, hindi ko na lang ilalagay. So she just wrote everything. Kaya yung first editions nito, ang nag-edit yung kanyang mga confessors, they were afraid of the Inquisition. So they took out some of. Kaya yung what we have now, yung kay Kavanaugh, is the authentic. No, it comes from, it's a translation of an edition that is really already authentic. No? In everything that Teresa wrote is there. No? Kasi yung unang-unang lumabas, sanitized eh. No? So the confessors obliged Teresa to make a report in writing of her spiritual experiences. And so it was intended to submit these experiences under the scrutiny of the confessors. Now, when she was first asked, you write your, kasi pag nagko-confess siya, sinasabi niya yun. Kasi ang confession nila nun, parang spiritual direction na rin eh. Sinasabi niya yung everything that she experienced. Sabi ng mga confessors niya, kasi they were discussing, no? She had, I think, 2 or 3 confessors. They were discussing, no? Not her sins, but yung experiences, no? So, sabi nila, it's so difficult to understand. Let's make her writing. So, ang una niyang sinulat, in what is known as the spiritual testimonies. We have a compilation with her, yung works niya. Meron yung chapter on spiritual testimonies. Si Salcedo at si Daza, no, ang nagpasulat sa kanya. But then, still, no, they found na kulang. And so they said, you write more, and you expand that. So she expanded it. It became the book of her life. And so, the book of Teresa's life is really a book that deals with the supernatural realities of her interior life. And it is here that she describes the different stages of prayer, what she went through. And she used an allegory, the ways of watering a garden, to symbolize how one grows in prayer. First, with a lot of effort. You go to the chapel to pray and you're just having a battle with your imagination, etc., etc. So she compares that with drawing water. If you want to water your garden, you go to the well with a pail, you tie the pail to a rope, and then you draw water and pull up. So sabi niya, yun yung first stage. As if you're doing all the work. So yung detachment, solitude, asceticism, that's our work. In the beginning, it is that. So sabi niya, yun yung first stage. And then eventually, um, it increases, right, until you come to a point where you do not make any effort anymore. It's like the garden is being watered from rain, from heaven. Ay, hindi ka man lang mag-irrigate, nandyan na yung ulan. Now, the life of Teresa is very difficult to read. Yung mga members information namin, when they read the life of Teresa, sometimes I give them chapters to read. They say we cannot, sometimes it's difficult for them to sustain reading. Kasi magulo magsulat si Teresa. No, she jumps from one topic to, kasi nga she writes what's in her head eh. So sometimes she writes, no, she describes her difficulties, her prayer, and then mamaya kinakausap na niya si Jesus, and then meron siyang gustong sabihin sa mga madre na admonition or teaching, then she will continue, and then several chapters after she will say, now let us go back to what I was saying. So, medyo ganon, ano, babae talaga, no? Hindi katulad ni John of the Cross na mas structured. Okay. So, she would digress very often. And so, if you want to read the life of Teresa, it would help. It would help a lot if you first read a good biography. So it already tells you something about her. Kasi if you read the life of Teresa na you don't know anything about her, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Now, what is the plan of the book of Teresa's life? So from chapters 1 to 10, yun yung Teresa's path to prayer, humanly speaking. From piety, which she got from her parents, and then God's mercy, how God persevered in teaching her how to pray, despite her infidelities. And so this is the first stage. And then chapters 11 to 22, this is already the different stages of prayer. What is prayer? What is its nature? What are the degrees and effects? And this is where she uses the allegory of watering the garden. So, probably, parang pag tinignan natin yung 4 stages na yun, para siyang theoretical framework of the different stages in the life of prayer. And as I said, Teresa actually lived these stages. So, drawing water from a well. From drawing water from a well, yung asceticism, where we flex our muscles, we go to a second stage where, sabi niya, it's like making an aqueduct, or a water wheel. Now, where you still draw water from the well, pero may mechanism na, so hindi na masyadong nakakapagod. Pagkatapos, irrigation. May human element pa rin kasi you have to see to it na nakapokus yung yung tulay mo from the river to your garden. And then yung 4th stage, yung plentiful water coming from heaven. Then in the final chapter, ito na yung fruits of Teresa's surrender to God's grace. No? First, God showed her, if you refuse me, this is where you will go. So, pinakita ng Diyos sa kanya yung place niya sa hell. No? This is your place if you refuse my love. So, and she said that she was describing that place very vividly. Sabi niya, God showed me what my place in hell would be. And so, when she saw that, okay, syempre, I don't want to go there. So, until, diba, parang ikaw, I want to save myself. At the same time, she said, that's also the growth of charity. Kasi, sabi niya, it was so bad I saw my place in hell. It was so bad. I don't want anybody to go there. And so, I will help people so that they will not go to hell. So, may outward movement. Hindi lamang yung I save myself, but I want to save others as well. And so, that was the beginning of her mission as a foundress. And then she also wrote in this chapter the effects of certain favors that God granted her. And the most important fruit of this effort to relate God's mercies is Teresa's teachings on prayer. Having experienced a most painful period in her life, when according to her, she neither enjoyed God nor found happiness in the world, Teresa also experienced God as the God of infinite goodness, who never abandons those who desire to be His own. Kasi in the spiritual life, we feel that. Hindi na tayo masaya sa mundo. At the same time, when we are in prayer, we also cannot feel God. It passes. And Teresa passed that stage. That very difficult stage. But Teresa says, God is infinitely good. He suffers those who suffer to be with Him. Now we go to the way of perfection. So Teresa's way of perfection is a way of perfection using the means that the Lord Jesus gave us. The most perfect prayer, the Our Father. And so the way of perfection is essentially advice and counsel for Teresa's little group of Carmelite sisters. It was a guide to initiate them into a life of prayer. She teaches. When you read the way of perfection, it's a teaching. Para siyang teacher talaga na nagtuturo kung paano magdasal. She demonstrates how to pray. She points out certain dangers. And she explains what are the right ways and the wrong ways of praying in this book. And so she said, there are 3 requisites to prayer, to a life of prayer. The first is charity, love of neighbor. The second is detachment. And the third is humility. And for Teresa, these 3 form the foundation of prayer. They free the spirit because they touch on 3 essential points. Others, the world, and ourselves. So, for charity, she encouraged her nuns to be friends to all. Kaya sa Carmel, di ba sa small community like Carmel, maliit lang yan you revolve around a very small environment with the same people. It's very dangerous to have particular friendships. Loving one sister over the others. So she cautioned against that. You must love everyone in the community. And then, maybe for us who are in the world, like ako, I'm a teacher. If I love one student over another, maybe it's very natural, even Jesus naman, may favorite, di ba? Pero yung love na, yung giving what is due to everybody, yung ano ba, even if may favorite ka, you don't give that person more than what you need to give to the others. Tapos yung detachment naman, hindi lang ito para sa mga tao who enter religious life. Right? It's also for everybody. Because in order to be perfect, one must be detached and humble. So, what does detachment mean? It includes poverty of spirit, mortification, surrender to God's will. Ano naman yung reward niya? Inner freedom. Inner freedom, freedom from worry about bodily comfort, honor, and wealth. Kasi if you're not detached from worldly wealth, you'll always be worrying how much you would be earning, etc., etc., no? If you're not detached from your own body, you always try to see, baka ako, ay, may pinapagawa sa akin ganun, baka ako magkasakit. So, you need a certain detachment to do the will of God. And for Teresa, humility is closely linked to detachment because a detached person is a humble person. Because you're detached from yourself. And according to Teresa, the practice of humility is not possible without love. No, so magkakakonekta yung tatlo. Para silang So Teresa says that praying with the Our Father in the method that she teaches is a method for people like her whose minds are like wild horses. Teresa is a very energetic person. And syempre, yung mga energetic na tao, energetic din ang imagination niya, ang memory. Sabi niya, kung minsan parang wild horses yung kanyang imagination. And so sabi niya, yung teaching niya sa prayer is for people like her who find it difficult to concentrate. So it is a method of praying the Our Father in a recollected way. It is also a method of presence, of being fully present to God. And according to Teresa, the Pater Noster is a form that is obscure. No, sabi niya parang medyo abstract, no? Ibig sabihin hindi siya rigid. So when you say, give us this day our daily bread, doesn't mean the material bread. It can mean anything. Give me what I need for today. No, so she said it's obscure enough to be flexible. So you can pray the Our Father for any occasion, any needs. It can be used to petition God for many things. Then we go to the interior castle, also known as the Book of the Mansions. So why did she write the interior castle? Again, the confessors asked her to write again. No? Sabi nila, kasi yung sinabit nila yung Book of her life sa Inquisition. So ngayon, wala nang kopya yung kanyang mga confessors. So sabi sa kanya, magsulat ka ulit. So that is the Book of the Mansions. So this was written approximately 10 years after she first wrote the Book of her life and after she has founded several Carmelite convents. Kaya mas parang mas luto na ba? Because mas malawak na rin yung experience. And it is regarded as Teresa's best synthesis of spiritual growth. She takes the image of the castle with 7 dwelling places where God dwells in the innermost part. The first 3 groups of dwelling places deals with what is achievable through human efforts and ordinary help of grace. The last 4 deal with the passive or mystical elements of spiritual life. Now, although Teresa says in the prologue of the interior castle that she intended to write about prayer, she later wrote, a week after the completion of the work, that the book is about God. And that it treats only of what He is. And the translator, si Kavanagh, sabi niya, the remark illustrates well how for Teresa, the journey in prayer through the interior castle to the center room inhabited by God is nothing else than the magnificent work of God's love. Now, ang suggestion ko sa interior castle, kasi hindi rin siya easy reading, actually, the Book of Father Mariugen, I Want to See God and I Am a Daughter of the Church, is a synthesis of Teresa. Yeah. It's a synthesis of the Book of the Mansions na pinapasok si John of the Cross and Teresa of the Child Jesus to see how these two
They are compared.
yeah, not compare, yeah, complementing. So yun. So that ends the presentation. Do you have any comments, questions? It was where she met a man who had influenced her to think of religious life? So, when you know her background?
Sister Mother Besenyo? Mother Besenyo?
I think so. Not a Carmelite.
Agustinian.
Yeah, Agustinian. So if you know her background, then you can appreciate her writings more. Because you will understand why she says certain things. Kasi yung sa I think sa interior casa, when she, sa life niya, she was describing spiritual life as yung chess, na you allow the king, the king allows himself to be captured, no? Kasi sabi mo, babae, 16th century Spain, alam niya yung chess. It was because the father, favorite si Teresa ng father niya, ay yung mga brothers niya malalaki na, wala na dun sa bahay. So si Teresa yung kalaro ng tatay niya sa chess.
Kaya magaling.
She was skilled in chess. And so, yung pag-describe niya ng how you approach God and how God desires to be captured by you. Yun nga, you move one, and then you surround the king until he can no longer get out. If you begin to read Teresa, you will begin to appreciate her. Yes, Father.
I am a daughter of the church. Is it synthesis of Teresa?
It's a sequel kasi sa French, Je veux voir Dieu. It's the two. And dahil when it was translated, masyado makapal. So, ginawa nilang 2 volumes. Yung first volume, I Want to See God. Yung second volume, I'm a Daughter of the Church. But in the French original, that is just I Want to See God.
It's about Teresa.
Not only about Teresa, Carmelite spirituality, but focusing on Teresa. Kaya, maintindihan mo mas lalo yung mansions. If you read I Want to See God and I Am a Daughter of the Church. It ends with yung I'm a Daughter of the Church. It ends with the Saint in the Whole Christ, apostolated. Na yung prayer life really should lead to building Christ's mystical body, the church. And God does not wait that we become a saint before He sends us to mission. Kasi otherwise, parang may mga din yan. You can be sent to mission even if you're not yet perfect.
Ano po yung certain video which you wrote na nagatituro kayo?
Yeah, that's one of her points. Yeah, because she experienced so many problems, especially with the foundation. Unang-una, kalaban niya yung hierarchical church. The bishop will give her permission, then will scold her after. Sometimes it takes a long while before she can really calm. So, and then they were criticizing her for being too aggressive, etc., etc. So, God one day appeared to her when she entered the oratory, and God told her, "Fear not, Teresa." And so it's a song of her heart also. Nothing, only God only God suffices. Everything changes, God alone has not changed. And patience, kasi yung gano'n na patience obtains all. Kasi she needed a lot of patience.
Tapos yung second, I think it was a storm na tapos parang flash flood.
Yeah.
She hung sa tree tapos yung sunod niya, now Lord, I know why you have few friends because you allow your friends to
sabi
suffer.
Niya, Parang interiorly narinig niya, sabi ni Jesus sa kanya, that's how I treat my friends. So sabi niya, no wonder you have so few. Tapos makita mo rin yung human when she was about to die. Mahal niya kasi si Ana
Salome.
So she wanted to, because she died in a convent where she was not welcome. Na ang prioress, pamangkin niya. Kasi she left Carmele to found the Discalce. Diba? Yung La Encarnacion. Di syempre galit sa kanya yung mga naiwan. It's like parang inisulto sila. Parang ganon, ano, na we are not good enough for you. Parang ganon. So when she was very sick, she was asked by the bishop to go back to La Encarnacion, the convent that she left, to become its prioress. So you can imagine how she was accepted.
Yung sinama niya si St. John of the Cross.
Oo, sinama niya.
As confessor.
As confessor, yeah. And then later, when she was already very sick, naglakbay siya, she had to enter a convent. She was dying already. And,
Alba de Tormes.
yeah, and she was in Alba de Tormes. She was not well received by the prioress. She was her niece, the daughter of her own brother. So she was put in her room. And, she died with Anubis in that room.
She died with she's his yaya.
Dati nung SIS kasi, 6 weeks yun eh. No? So meron kami presentation. We had a presentation about her life. Very, very touching. And then with her death.
Pero we've seen that film na I think for 6 hours in Spanish about Teresa pa ito. Meron silang ginawa na. Napakaganda rin. 6 hours.
Pero in Spanish.
So I think English na yun.
So, sa baba niya, subtitle. The Foundations, yata.
Subtitle. Not probably in preparation for her centenary. Way back. Anong engagement? Yung relationship nila. Of course, St. John of the Cross is much younger. Much younger. Pero, kasi when she was